At this point, you may be wondering, okay, this is a lot of information, but what can we do after this meeting? And behind me now are a few of the suggestions that we would have. But most importantly, I'm going to say to you, read the index first. Read the index and start to see what kind of resonates with you in areas that you may want to get involved in. There's the index and the full 8-page summary that you're going to be receiving. I'll tell you about it in a minute. As Gandhi said, you be the change that you want to see in the world. Be a great example to your kids, to your families, to your grandchildren. Encourage them to be community-minded, to get involved. It's important to stay informed. That's one of the hallmarks of this meeting and with the Community Foundation, is to stay informed with what's going on. Find out what the nonprofits are doing with regard to some of the issues that you're going to learn about. And then find out how you can help. Our hope is that people will get into deeper conversations about how they can make a collective difference here in the Valley. So that the next index that we do 3 years from now and another one 6 years from now, we can start seeing the trends change as far as some of these statistics. We don't, as Alan said, want this index to sit on the shelf. Now, you should have received a slip. I don't know if I have one up here, but a slip in front of you. Yes, thank you. That you can put your information down. And what we'd like to do is start collecting information about people who want to maybe be involved with education or want to be involved with the hunger issues or the housing issues, things like that, so that you can be part of the conversation. You may want to just keep informed about it, but please take a look at this and fill out this slip and make sure that we have it before you leave today, because we'd like to share that with different groups. Here in the Valley, as everybody's indicated, it's an incredible group of people that work together. On a monthly basis, the Council for Health and Human Services meets every month and shares what's going on with their organizations. This is a perfect group of people that we can see if we can work through to be able to have community conversations. So one of the things I'd like to ask, and this is risky because we've got a few minutes here, I'd like to ask the panelists before we go on to Q&A, is there anything that you would want to share with the audience of ways that they can, help and make a difference?
Well, sure. I just like to point out that this has already happened in the past. Back in the mid-'90s, there was the Healthy Valley study, which was very similar to this. And at that point in time, there were, I believe, 27 different initiatives that people said they thought were important based on the data. And I'm looking down at Patrick. Griffin Hospital took the data generated from that, and today we have the Breast Cancer Center. Okay, another group talked about the recreation things. That's where the greenways came from. So, the history of us in the Valley doing these studies is that they don't sit on the shelves. But it takes individuals who take key parts and say, hey, I can do something about that. So I think that's the same thing that we need here.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Chris?
Certainly certainly the schools are very interested. I know all of the districts in the Valley feel this way, of having people come in and volunteer, not just as a one-off, but as a sustainable interaction with students. Students, especially students that are economically disadvantaged, need the opportunity to envision what a future with them in it looks like and how they can grow and what the opportunities are. And that doesn't happen necessarily from reading a book. It happens from meeting you and you and you and talking about what you do and having them interact with you. So as a mentor, I'm going to push the mentor program. You don't have to be a tutor, but you can mentor a kid, come in once a week. It's a very life-affirming thing for the adults, and it's absolutely stellar for the kids.
Great, thanks. Anybody else? Yeah, you can.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, I have a couple of random thoughts. Number one, we could easily flip-flop. There's so many experts in this audience who could be up here as the panel, and I say that because we've got to get people involved, and there are so many vehicles of involvement around councils for Health and Human Services and adult daycare program task force that Sue was talking about. So get involved, and we need to kind of scream, because we can do this. We can do this. This can be very overwhelming looking at this entire thing. I don't want to get at a granular level, but if a lot of this is interrelated, and when you think of the intersections of health and well-being and children, one example that you'll find in here that is we can do, as far as an example of we can do this, when you look at lead. Lead poisoning is the most common pediatric health problem for children, yet it is entirely preventable. And when you look at the data from 2013, and we've made exceptional progress right here in this region, we have more work to do. There are still 29% of children were not screened for lead in 2013. So you could just take that one little nugget from here, and what are we going to do tomorrow? What kind of conversation can we have? The experts are in the audience. The players that we need, I think, is an excellent example of how these things interrelate. Lastly, a couple of things. So if we look at, we heard that, 1 in 4 residents by 2025 will be age 65 and older. And we look around, and what's good is that we're having, very deliberate, intentional, data-driven decision-making on how are we responsive to those needs as those evolve over time. I would also say to you what an asset that is, what an incredible advantage we have of a senior population of 1 in 4. When you think about volunteerism, you think about retirees, you think about the wealth of wisdom and experiences. And then I would also say to you, how do we connect the dots to youth? Imagine the power of intergenerational connections. And I'd also say to you, to kind of piggyback as I was listening to Chris, is youth who are struggling, who are really needing, have kind of fallen upon tough times, have perhaps been born into difficult circumstances, who are, when we look at the low-income population, more and more are feeling more isolated, and more are feeling that no one is on their side. And so how do we connect the dots with this asset, in my opinion, of a growing, aging population in the region? And then lastly, and also as far as the adult daycare piece, that is an exceptional example of everyone coming together. People from every skill set, to steal Bill's phrase, the political power. Sue mentioned to many. I also, Senator Crisco was also right there at the desk saying we can do this, and pushing team to reach out to the federal offices. And I see Senator Murphy's staff is here, Ben. Those are good examples of we're going to get there to respond to that need, to address accessibility and mobility and options for families and seniors. And so we can do this. That's just one of countless examples of the power of coming together and having this dialogue and having the rubs. And so the last piece I want to say, and I'll stop, is we need to talk around understanding and tolerance. And this is me saying this, and I'm not making a moral point here. It's just we're not having the conversation enough around what it means to be struggling, what it means to people don't wake up and say I want to be poor. Many people have, I say, my menu of options and choices for my life looks different than other individuals who are struggling. And that begins early. Children are born into it. Individuals are born into these disadvantages. And this is a tough conversation to have. And we think about the challenges environmentally, socially, and economically. We need to this I see as a platform too, because we're all in this together. We're all connected. In the end, we're not here very long. We're all walking each other home. And so we need to have that conversation. And we look at the income disparities, and we look at diversity, and you look at, which is another incredible strength that we need to recognize. And you look at young children, and it's going to continue. You look at 1990 in this region, 1 in 10 of a racial or ethnic minority is now 1 in 3 at 2014. And so how do we embrace that, and how do we celebrate that, and how do we turn that into this dialogue? So that's what my push to you. And lastly, just my third lastly, don't just say this was nice, the coffee was good, and then we all go back to the work that we do. I open telephone line, come to me and say, you know what, here's my passion, this is what I want to do. If I don't know, I'm going to find out how to connect you to that. And I would say the same to Sharon, I'm sure would echo the same in the Valley Community Foundation.
Great. I think Bill,
Just to,
okay, you guys, go quick now.
yeah, very
Open
quickly.
the door.
You know, much as we say no man or woman is an island, no community is an island, I think to our legislators too, that we all as citizens need to keep the pressure on to improve our overall economic competitiveness, to advocate for a balanced fiscal budget here in our state, to improve the environment as we're working on every day, because I think at the end of the day, a good job is the underpinnings of quality of life in the community, getting people back to work. Watershed event, you know, with respect to the Sikorsky decision and keeping them anchored here. Hopefully to 2232 is so vital, monumental decision. So we need to continue to improve the competitive environment, to encourage new business formation, the expansion of our existing businesses. Listen, the Valley has been outpacing the state. It really is. It's been an oasis in terms of job creation and vitality. But we do need that overarching competitive landscape vis-a-vis our neighbors, north, south, east, and west, and really all over the country and all over the world.
Okay,
I just want to get in one quick plug. We're talking about getting people involved. We have to make it easier for people to get involved. Okay, you know, the ask. You know, we have a tremendous resource. You know, Pat is sitting there. She's the director of our volunteer center. But there's also an online database that we have for people to find opportunities. But the challenge is we all have to get our opportunities listed there. So, you know, when that moment strikes and you say, oh, I'd really like to get involved in the community, you can find an opportunity. And it's free. It doesn't cost anything. Just list your opportunities and, you know, again, build it and they will come. It does happen. So please take advantage of that. It's a free service.
Thank you, and thank you to the other panelists who are holding back on saying something right now. Because I do want to open it up to the floor, and I hope that there's a lot of people that have written down some questions. Just in case you do need to leave before it is over, I do want to let you know that one of the most important things that the Community Foundation is doing at this time is making sure that you are informed about the issues here in the Valley. So as you leave, you will receive the Shining a Spotlight, which is the executive summary of the needs and opportunities in the index. It is not the full executive summary of an index, but of the needs and opportunities that we see in the Valley at this time. You're also going to receive a packet that looks like this, and inside is going to be what looks like a little credit card with the cover of the index on it. It's actually a USB card. I did it, John. It is a USB card in which when you pinch and do this, you will have the full index right here, a data copy of the index for each and every one of you. So what we are actually going to be basically almost flooding, hopefully kind of flooding the market with this information so that people can start getting involved and making a difference. So we are actually sending this out as our newsletter for this month. So if you get a copy here today, you probably will get one in the mail from us. That's great. Give it to somebody else so that they can read and understand and hear it. If you find that you're pulling up the index more online, because it will be, these materials, of course, will be on our website and probably other people's websites, you know, give this little USB to somebody to say, hey, take a look at this, so that we can start building an informed, more informed community, because where is my Valley Indy? There he is back there. As Eugene knows, it is a challenge to keep people informed in this community. We don't have the newspapers as we did. We don't have the radio stations as we did. We don't have the television stations as we did. So you need to be reading the Valley Indy. You need to be out there and getting informed.